Today we are standing in Turbine Hall in Tate Modern, located in London, England, where Doris Salcedo's shibboleth once stood. Famous for lying in a limbo between structure and installation, the large scar from where it stood from 2007 to 2008 recalls the lasting impression the work has left on the space. Before we dive more into shibboleth, it is important to understand the mind of Salcedo. Doris Salcedo was born in 1958 in Bogota, Colombia, where she still lives and works today. She first started her career in training in the 1970s, studying painting at Universidad de Bogota Jorge Tadeo Lozanzo. There she learned from the famous Colombian artist Beatriz Gonzalez, who would often incorporate everyday materials into her work. The influence of Gonzalez inspired Salcedo's style. In the 1980s, she began her master's in fine arts at New York University. It was here where she began her interest in combining sculpture with socio-political meaning. Salcedo's experience as a Colombian artist who has worked abroad and has shaped many of her works. Her style has been to alter old and damaged furniture by filling it with cement and combining unrelated materials to create a sense of dysfunctionality. Many of her works comment on socio-political experiences that she has encountered in society. In Widowed House 4, made of wooden doors with bedposts, a blouse, and a bone, comments on the absence of a human. Untitled, 1995, consists of chairs filled with cement and a table. The scene creates images of violation and the intrusion of materials. This vis-a-vis, or the confronting of a specified or implied object, contrasts and creates juxtaposition of the familiar with the impersonal, the domestic with the industrial. In Atribulus, 1992, Salcedo encased women's shoes into a niche covered with a cow bladder. As part of her creative process, she puts herself into the shoes of the victims. Her choice of a cow bladder and old battered shoes was important to the work, as this was things that were typically repulsed by people. It speaks of the violence, suffering, and loss that she saw in Colombia during a time of war. Salcedo once said, "The important task for an artist here is to try to give society tools of mourning. Art cannot explain things, but at least art can expose them." This was the main purpose of all her works, to evoke thoughts of the viewer that exposed hidden or forgotten about meanings. Let's shift back towards shibboleth now that we have a greater understanding into the mind of Doris Salcedo. The provocative title further complicates the work rather than decoding it. There are several stories behind the word and its dark meaning. Originally, it refers to an incident in the Bible. The Ephraimites tried to leave the land via the River Jordan, but they were stopped by the Gileadites, their enemies. Since in their language the sound didn't exist, anyone who couldn't say the word shibboleth was caught and killed. The word is now seen as a token of power to judge, to kill, and to reject. The viewer is required to contort their bodies in a variety of ways to view the fissure from different perspectives as they walk to get a better view. It elaborates on a complex socio-political topic with a formal presence. The work is meant to show the immigrant experience in Europe. The artist believes that every community, culture, and nation has its own shibboleth. It is described as a custom that distinguishes one group of people from another. The space in the floor represents racial segregation that marked the immigrant experience. It is meant to show the experience of immigrants of color as permanently set apart. This work is a piece of conceptual art, which emphasizes the idea and concept behind art over physical and aesthetic qualities. It challenges preconceived notions of art. The 548-foot rupture spans across the entire floor and varies from a few inches apart to a few feet in depth. The cracks are lined with a mesh wiring which a viewer can see. The artist's main goal is to have the spectators have a change in perspective. She wants them to go from viewing it as just a crack in the concrete to see the art about the disenfranchised. She wants people to see how immigrants are now separated from friends and enemies by a fine linguistic line. The act of physically breaking open the floor is metaphorically exposing the fracture in modern society, which in turn forces the viewer to bring their attention to what is below. The dramatic presence sheds light on the history that has a dark side which is rarely told. Salcedo's experience working abroad has led her to be empathetic towards marginalized people's struggles. The crack intrudes Turbine Hall and its large presence seems unwelcome. This is no doubt a parallel intended to invoke thought about how immigrants are made to feel unwelcome in a place that may be entirely homogeneous. Similarly to how Alfred Stieglitz and the Steerage provides commentary on the immigration system and experience, both Shibboleth and the Steerage use unconventional mediums for their time to convey their message. Both the artists intend to have the viewers shift their gaze down to what is perceived as below them. Each artist's medium and tools create discussion and thought from the audience about what should be considered fine art. While Shibboleth uses a simple, cracked line to reveal a dark void previously unseen, the steerage calls for complex views on how photography can layer abstraction. It comments on both shapes and forms as well as the subject, the immigrants who were rejected at Ellis Island. Both artists use experience and knowledge of the immigration experience to call the viewer to confront the reality of the time. This was the first work to permanently alter the museum space. The act of creating the chasm was transgressive. The act of deliberately breaking one's media as an act of rebellion. Salcido's strength is her ability to balance the formal impact with its message while preventing one from overshadowing the other. Although the artist offers hope, after 7 months of being on display, the crack was filled in with concrete, and today a permanent scar is left on the floor, which marks the possibility of healing and having literal and figural closure. This also serves as an obstacle for any attempts to erase the past.